Hi. So this is a sort of a continuation and combining together of two other things we've already seen. One of them is the story of Rabbi Akiva and his wife and going away to study. And the other is men's obligations for sex, which I think we talked about, right? Yeah, okay. So just to review, here's the first page of the Mishnah, which is a ketubah, and basically says men are obligated to provide sex to their wives, and depending on how busy you are, that's how often you have to provide it. If you are a man of leisure, daily, whenever she wants. If you are a laborer, twice a week, donkey drivers once a week, camel drivers once every 30 days, sailors every 6 months, right? Okay. Now, did we talk about changing jobs? No?
No.
Okay, so that's the Mishnah. So here's the Gemara, okay? Why don't you, would you like to leave?
Oh, sure,
Okay,
changing
sure.
jobs, okay. Rabbah bar Rav Hanan said to Abaye, if a donkey driver who is already married wants to become a camel driver, what is the halakha?
Okay, what's the problem here?
Hey, you have to go from 1 week to 30 days?
They have to change.
Right.
So, wow, here's the conundrum. Is he permitted to change his profession in order to earn more money from his work, even though this will mean he reduces the frequency with which he engages in conjugal relations with his wife? He answered him, a woman prefers a kav, that is, modest means, with conjugal relations to 10 kav with abstinence. Consequently, he is not allowed to change his profession without her permission.
Okay, so what do we think about this?
We think that the rabbis know an awful lot about what women want.
Really?
That's
How
what it says here.
How accurate are they? Sex or money? Which would you prefer, sweetie? House in the Riviera, but I only visit once in a while, or let's live in the slums, but hey, I'm here every day.
What do they mean a cob? Is that money?
It's a measure. A cob is a measure of volume. It just is a generic measure of stuff. So,
Okay.
but they're not saying that he's forbidden. Saying he must get permission.
Well, you gotta talk this over with your
Right,
wife. If
right.
you're making this big change, it's going to affect other areas of your life.
Mhm.
So you need to, you and your wife need to
Right.
ideally be on the same page.
It affects other areas of her life.
Right, true. And and I know the common humor in many groups is, sweetie, go make more money. Go, have fun. But they're not making that assumption. Okay. But there's something on the top of, you're about to say something.
Well, no, I mean, there are a lot of different things involved here. A woman's status had a lot to do with how many children she had,
Mhm.
and also her ability to stay married had
Right.
a lot to do with how many children she had. So,
Right.
all of this factors in,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Well, that does factor in. Okay. Next little story, extended leave.
Okay. The Mishnah stated, for sailors, the set interval of conjugal relations is once every 6 months. This is the statement of Rabbi Elijah. Rav Morona said, the Rab said, the halakha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Elijah. Rab Adabar Ahava said that Rab said, this is the statement of Rabbi Elijah. But the rabbis say students may leave their homes to study Torah for as long as 2 or 3 years without permission from their wives. Rava said the sages relied on Rabbi Adabar Abba's opinion and performed an action like this themselves, but the results were sometimes fatal.
Okay, so let's unpack this paragraph here. They're trying to figure out, is all of the halacha according to Rabbi Eliezer, or some of it, or none of it? And the rabbis are motivated to try to say, Eliezer's, this is just his opinion. The real halacha is you can be gone for 2 or 3 years without permission, right? Why are the rabbis wanting for this? Because education possibly has changed, right? When the mission is written down, you go away for a month of study, like you go for a month of studies, you come back, right? Terms are a month, let's just say. Now we're in Babylon, and you're not going away to study for a month, you're going to study away for a semester, or maybe a few years, right? Because you have to go long distances, right? So they're motivated, they want to produce more rabbis, they want to have the people to be more educated, right? So they want to have permission to go and study for a year, or 2, or 3, right? So, but, the sages relied on Rabbi Adabarava's opinion, right? The sages, did this, but sometimes the results were not good, okay? So how could the results be not good? Let's just imagine the text ahead of us.
Well, he doesn't come home.
He doesn't come
We don't
home.
know why, but he doesn't come home.
He doesn't come home, okay?
Fatalities.
Fatalities,
Means
Yeah.
death,
yeah,
somebody died.
Yep.
okay. Well, let's read that story.
Well, maybe, I don't know what the crime rate was like. I don't know if, maybe they thought the rabbi would try to, or the student might try to hit on another lady.
That is actually the last thing that they ever thought of. That does not enter their minds.
Okay,
But maybe the woman died of starvation, I mean.
Maybe. Well, why don't you read the next story here?
Okay, fatalities. This is as it is related about Rav Rahumi, who had commonly studied before Rabbah in Mahosa. He was accustomed to come back to his home every year on the eve of Yom Kippur. One day he was particularly engrossed in the halakha he was studying, and so he remained in the study hall and did not go home. His wife was expecting him that day and continually said to herself, now he's coming, but in the end he did not come. She was distressed by this, and a tear fell from her eye. At that exact moment, Rav Rahumi was sitting on the roof. The roof collapsed under him and he died. This teaches how much one must be careful, as he was punished severely for causing anguish to his wife, even inadvertently.
Okay. Have we seen the story before?
Yeah, we did.
We
That
did.
one we read.
That one we read. Okay, so it still stands, right? He is coming home once a year, and she is being widowed by this experience, and he gets punished because you can't do that. Interesting thing, what's rechumi? What word does that sound like? Rachum. Rachum.
Yeah.
God is rachum v'chanun,
Oh, yeah.
merciful, compassionate, but also rechem, womb.
Wound?
Womb,
Oh,
like, where children come from.
gotcha.
So he is Rav Rachumi, but he's punished because he has no rachamim,
Mhm.
and he denies his wife the use of her rechem,
Hmm,
Interesting.
right?
interesting.
Interesting. Okay, we also looked at the next one as well, about Shabbat night to Friday night. And yeah, we looked at that one there.
Right.
We didn't do all of these, did we? I don't think we did all of these.
I don't think we did punctuality.
Well, let's do that's okay. So the best time was the Friday nights to Friday nights.
No, we did do punctuality.
Okay.
I think we read the next one too. Punctuality. Yeah, I think we did that.
I don't think we did don't wait too long.
No, that doesn't look familiar.
Okay, so let's skip the punctuality one, right? That's the one with the pillar of fire, but it wasn't really a pillar of, by the way, I did some more research. The pillar of, did I tell you that your Yerushalmi tells it different?
No.
So So there's the Babylonian Talmud and the Palestinian or Yerushalmi. And the Yerushalmi is written earlier, but sometimes it's more simple. So for example, there was one particular story where I gave you the Yerushalmi version because the Babylonian version was just way out there, right? So here, what's the sign? Every Friday night, there's a pillar of fire that he sees going across the town. Says, that's it. In the Palestinian version and the Yerushalmi, it's every Friday night on his way home, he would stop in and say hello to his father-in-law on his way home. And this particular night, he didn't stop in to say hello. And therefore he figured, he didn't stop to say hello, he must be dead. Okay?
A little more
A
believable.
little more believable than this pillar of fire, okay? But by the way, how strong of an assumption should he have made that he would never miss this? How worried should he have been?
Well, if you never miss a day, I guess you're
So-
wondering,
so
like,
I'll-
okay, he never
so-
misses a day, he's here.
I'll tell you two stories. One story is from the Minyan in Bangor, Maine, where one of the Minyan regulars didn't show up. So after Minyan, they went to his house and they found him on the floor. He'd had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they brought him to the hospital and he was okay.
Wow, that's good.
But if you don't show up at, Minyan, if you come to Minyan, Minyan will take care of you. The other one was my cousin, my great aunt. My great aunt always would go to get her hair done on a Tuesday. And she didn't show up for her hair appointment. So the hairdresser called, didn't get an answer, called her son. My cousin Paul goes to the house and her hip had broken.
Wow.
And she was on the floor, she couldn't get anywhere.
Wow.
So again, if you have a regular pattern, it will keep you safe. Whether it's, saying hello to your father on Friday night, going to Minyan or your hairdresser. But the secret is people should not just go straight to the assumption that you're dead and start mourning you. They should go to the assumption of, maybe I should investigate and see what's going on. Okay, here we go. So don't wait too long.
Okay. It is related further that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi arranged for his son to marry a daughter of the household of Rabbi Hia. When he came to write the marriage contract, the girl died. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, "Is there, heaven forbid, some disqualification in these families, as it appears that God prevented this match from taking place?" They sat and looked into the family's ancestry and found that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was descended from Shephatiah ben Avital, the wife of David, whereas Rabbi Hia was descended from Shimi, David's brother. He went and arranged for his son to marry a daughter of the household of Rabbi Yosai ben Zimra.
Okay, so there's a pause there. So why did the girl die?
Okay.
Cousins and.
Because it wasn't as good a lineage. It wasn't as good a lineage. It was an inferior lineage, therefore, she wasn't worthy.
Okay.
But this is their mindset, like, there is a purpose for everything, okay? It doesn't advance the narrative at all, other than say these guys, they believe in signs and symbols, okay?
Okay. He went and arranged for his son to marry a daughter of the household of Rabbi Yosei ben Zimra. They agreed for him that they would support him for 12 years to go to study in the study hall. It was assumed that he would first go to study and afterward get married. They passed the girl in front of the groom, and when he saw her, he said, "Let it be just 6 years."
Okay, what's going on here?
You like there she was?
Yeah, it's like, I don't wanna wait that long,
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Let's cut that time in half.
okay?
They passed her in front of him again, and he said to them, "I will marry her now and then go to study."
Aha,
He was then ashamed to see his father, as he thought he would reprimand him because when he saw the girl, he desired her and could not wait. His father placated him and said to him, "My son, you have your maker's perception," meaning you acted the same way that God does. The proof for this is that initially it is written, "You bring them and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, the place that you, O Lord, have made for you to dwell in."
Okay, so he's gonna prove this notion of, by the way, what's the rivalry? What are the two rivalries for the husband's attention?
Studying and,
Right, there's studying
Studying.
and there's the bride, right?
yeah.
And they're viewing them each as equally attractive. And he is afraid that his father will get mad because he finds the wife more attractive than the education. Now here, he's gonna bring a proof here. So you bring them and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, the place, O Lord, that you have made for you to dwell in. Okay, that's a verse from Exodus. And here's the explication.
Which indicates that God's original intention was to build a temple for the Jewish people after they had entered Eretz Yisrael. And ultimately, it is written, "And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them." That is, even while they were still in the desert, which indicates that due to their closeness of God, they enjoyed greater affection, and he therefore advanced what would originally have come later.
So what they're arguing is, there was never supposed to be a portable temple, the Mishkan. We were supposed to get to the promised land and then build a temple, but God couldn't wait. God wanted to make a house with us earlier. Okay? Okay,
Okay, all right. After his wedding, he went and sat for 12 years in the study hall. By the time he came back, his wife had become infertile as a consequence of spending many years without her husband. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, "What should we do? If he will divorce her, people will say, 'This poor woman waited and hoped for naught.' If he will marry another woman to beget children, people will say, 'This one who bears him children is his wife, and that one who lives with him is his mistress.' Therefore, her husband pleaded with God to have mercy on her, and she was cured."
okay. Couple of assumptions running in here, right? Assumption number one, if your husband is way too long, your body will lose interest in having children. Okay, that's an interesting one. What do you think of this? His way for 12, and assumption number two, in all of these stories, we'll pray to God and it'll get better.
And apparently that happens.
Yeah, well, apparently they kept trying. People are often surprised to have children later in life. I remember, she was angry because she had 3 kids and 2 of them were in their 20s and one of them was 4. It was like, this is
The surprise.
not what this was not how we planned it. Cute kid though.
But here,
Yeah.
he's sitting in the study hall, but does that mean he's not ever going home?
Yeah, when they're going away for 12 years, they're going away for 12 years.
He's got to be far enough away that it's difficult to
Right,
come back.
Right.
Why don't
Yeah.
they,
I mean, Rav Rahumi, at least he came home once a year on Yom Kippur, which was totally useless. But at least he came home once a year. So at least that she saw him and her womb didn't lose hope. This guy's gone for 12 straight years.
why didn't they take their wives with them to study?
Well, you don't do that. You can't have a woman in the study hall, my God, I mean, it would be terrible. Women learning, are you crazy?
Can't
Women
bring
are
her
not supposed to be
along,
learning. No.
Bring her along, and I guess they lived there, right, at the study hall.
Yeah.
Was it like a monastery almost?
Probably, possibly, yeah.
But if you are going to marry a young woman and you know that you won't be with her for 12 years, I mean,
Yeah.
assuming, isn't there an ethical consideration there that you're violating her rights
Right.
in some way?
And the way that the rabbis are expressing their opinion that this is a bad idea
Yeah.
is, number one, they told us up front it's a bad idea.
Mhm.
And now they're giving examples of how it was a bad idea, okay? So this is not the way you should do this, right? These are all cautionary tales. Cautionary tales. Right, well, mostly cautionary.
And they're always saying, at the end, hey, she
I-
got lucky, God have mercy on her,
Yeah,
and she
yeah,
was
yeah.
cured, but that doesn't happen to
No, that
everybody.
doesn't always happen, no.
How did they make money? I mean, how did they support their family?
Oh, the wife worked and sent money, I'm sure.
Couldn't the wife have gone lived place closer to the school?
No, I don't know. I mean, this is here, the fathers-in-law we're gonna study, support. Okay.
I mean, Yehuda Hanasi must have been a very wealthy.
Oh, he was the richest man in the land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you figure he could have supported his daughter.
Yeah.
What a horrible fate.
Yeah,
And he's also the wisest man in the
right,
room,
well,
so,
maybe not.
he was like the.
He makes some mistakes. Okay. So don't wait too long.
Okay. Rabbi Hanya ben Hakani went to the study hall at the end of Rabbi Shimon ben Yobi's wedding feast. Rabbi Shimon said to him, "Wait for me until I come with you, after my days of celebration are over." However, since he wanted to learn Torah, he did not wait and then went and sat for 12 years in the study hall.
Okay, so this is Rabbi Shimon. Shimon was, Rabbi Hachani is going to go to the study hall at the end of the rabbi's wedding feast. Rabbi Shimon says, wait for me until I can come to you. But he wouldn't wait, so, okay, he went with him. So he didn't hang out after his wedding, he went to study, okay? So Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai has gone off to study, right? Okay.
He went and sat on the bank of the river and heard people calling to a certain girl, "Daughter of Hakini, daughter of Hakini, fill your pitcher and come up," he said. "I can conclude from this that this is our daughter," meaning his own daughter, whom he had not recognized after so many years. He followed her to his house. His wife was sitting and sifting flour. She lifted her eyes up, saw him, and recognized him. And her heart fluttered with agitation, and she passed away from the emotional stress. Rabbi Hanya said before God, Master of the universe, "This is the reward of our poor woman." He pleaded for mercy for her and she lived.
Okay. So this guy, I'm sorry, I told a little bit wrong. Hanani ben Hakinai goes to the study hall at the end of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai's wedding feast. So he went to someone else's wedding, and Shimon bar Yochai says, "Wait for me," and he doesn't wait for him. He goes off and he studies, and he's there for 12 years. And when he comes back, he doesn't recognize his daughter, but and he doesn't recognize his home. Like, he's been gone so long, the streets have changed. But he hears someone calling, "Daughter of Hakina," says, "Aha, that must be my daughter. I'll follow her home." And then his wife is so shocked to see him home, like he's returned from the dead, she drops dead of a heart attack. Of course, we prayed for her, she lives, so give us our happy ending. Right? This is a cautionary tale, right? What?
I'm sorry, I know it's a cautionary tale,
Uh-huh.
but I mean, that woman died because she exploded from anger.
Yep.
It wasn't the emotional happiness of seeing him, which is kind of vaguely implied here.
Yeah. Well, agitation.
Yeah.
I'll grant you agitation, right? It's like, what they're showing here is a massive inconsideration of how their women feel.
But also the fact that women, although presumably they have the right to either give permission or not give permission here, they don't really have the right to do that, or it's very early on,
Right.
when they're still in this romantic fantasy
Right,
world,
right.
they give their permission.
Right.
But then they're stuck with this fate
Right.
of being married but not married.
Right. And remember, the original Mishnah said, like, a month. You can be gone a month without permission. And here they're just taking off, right?
Right.
Without even telling them sometimes. It's like, it's terrible.
And they're also assuming that in that month, the wife is missing them. It could be that the wife is thinking, oh, this is the best part of the month when
It
he's away.
it could be, but you know, women are frustrated, women wanna have children, that's their
Yeah.
assumption, women wanna have children, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, our next narrative.
Okay, you could have stayed at home. Rabbi Hama bar Bisa went and sat for 12 years in the study hall. When he came back to his house, he said, I will not do what the son of Hakinai, who went home suddenly with tragic consequences for his wife, did. He went and sat in the study hall in his hometown and sent a message to his house that he had arrived. While he was sitting there, his son, Rabbi Oshaya, whom he did not recognize, came and sat before him. Rabbi Oshaya asked him questions about halakha, and Rabbi Hama saw that the halachot of Rabbi Oshaya were incisive, i.e., he was very sharp. Rabbi Hama was distressed and said, if I had been here and had taught my son, I would have had a child like this.
Okay, so here's the irony,
It is his child.
it is his child, and
He doesn't know his child.
he doesn't know his child, and you're right, if he had stayed at home, he would have been as bright as his child. In other words, he didn't need to go at all, he could have just stayed, okay?
Rabbi Hama went into his house, and his son went in with him. Rabbi Hama then stood up before him to honor a Torah scholar, since he thought that he wanted to ask him a matter of halakha. His wife said to him, is there a father who stands up before his son? The Gemara comments, Rami bar Hama read a verse about him. The threefold cord is not quickly broken. This is referring to Rabbi Oshaya, son of Rabbi Hama bar Bisa, as he represented the third generation of Torah scholars in his family.
In other words, they just kind of, they don't even deal with their comment, they just, let's just throw in a little verse and walk away. Yeah, there's a lot of tragedy going on here, right? Now, this next story, you know, right, this is Rabbi Akiva, right? And he's away for 12 years, and, you know, he walks in and she says, oh, I wish he'd stay another 12 years away, so she does, okay? So, you know, and but Rabbi Akiva is the exception, okay? He's the exception to the rule. He really is. And so it's a trend. So the Gemara relates, Rabbi Akiva's daughter did the same thing for Ben Azai, who was also a simple person, and she caused him to learn Torah in a similar way by betrothing herself to him and sending him off to study. This explains the folk saying that people say, the you follows the you follows the you, the daughter's actions are the same as her mother's. It's like, okay, doesn't say how long away Ben Azai was, although it's interesting. Oh, that's really interesting. Because Ben Azai, I always thought Ben Azai was called Ben Azai, never called Rabbi, because Ben Azai wasn't married. So I have to look up Ben Azai now, because that doesn't gel with my understanding of his name. Okay, last story.
Okay, don't come home too soon. On the other hand, okay, on the same subject, it is related. Rav Yosef, son of Rava, was sent by his father to the study hall to learn before the great sage Rav Yosef. They agreed that he should sit for 6 years in the study hall. When 3 years had passed, the eve of Yom Kippur arrived, and he said, I will go and see the members of my household, meaning his wife.
Okay, so number one, it's not 12 years this time, it's 6 years. And number two, halfway through, he's getting lonely. He's coming home.
His
Okay.
father heard and took a weapon as if he were going to war and went to meet him.
Why is he doing that?
Don't come home.
Because he's abandoning his studies.
Yeah, he's abandoning his studies, and you know, I don't want that to happen, right? I mean, God forbid, he'll come home, he'll see his wife, and he won't want to go back, right?
According to one version, he said to him, did you remember your mistress as you are abandoning your studies to see a woman? There are those who say that he said to him, did you remember your dove? Since both father and son were involved in an argument, they were preoccupied, and this master did not eat the cessation meal before Yom Kippur, and that master also did not eat the cessation meal that day.
Okay. Translation? Before Yom Kippur, you're supposed to eat a meal.
Right.
They never got to the meal because they couldn't resolve their conflict. They were arguing for so long and then it was too late to eat. Okay? And it's interesting, he's saying, Torah is your wife and your wife is your mistress.
Yeah.
And, did you remember your dove? Well, that's like, because we don't want to be calling your wife a whore, because that's not what you want to do, right? So, what do you think of this last story here? What's the Talmud trying to say? Or what do we hope the Talmud is trying to say?
I guess it's trying to say that the love of God is more important than the love of anyone else on earth.
Maybe. I don't know. I think in this last story, it's trying to say,
Be reasonable.
be reasonable, or it's unclear. For some people, study is going to be a mistress. And for other people, study is a good thing, but your wife is more important, right? Certainly Rav Rachumi, who falls through the roof, your wife is more important. And the rabbi whose wife is infertile, your wife is more important. And the rabbi who discovers he didn't have to go away at all because he could have learned and he's so impressed by the brilliance of the son that he left behind who didn't go to study, right? That
You could have stayed home.
these rabbis are being inconsiderate.
Okay.
Right? So, when we think about modern society, right? What do we do to our kids when we send them away to college?
We want our kids, if you send your kids to college, you're investing, you want your kid to stay there, complete his degree.
Right.
Because otherwise he's wasting his time. Or she.
But what does this do to our communities? Because, in the olden days, your kid learned a trade and they stayed in the community. You'd have multi-generational families in an area where, mom and dad are around, and when they have the grandchildren, mom and dad are around, grandchildren, whole families in areas, right? When you think about the classic, Jewish heyday of half a century or more, right? Where everyone's living in the tenements and it's the whole communities are building communities. And now what happens is you send your kid away to college and they don't come home.
Correct.
You send your kid away to college, they meet a boy or a girl from somewhere else who's also in some way in college. They end up living someplace with neither family. Now they're having children. They don't have the benefit of grandparents around. They don't have the benefit of uncles and aunts around, right? Because everyone's scattered. This is not just Jewish, but this is the community family groups are becoming scattered.
And that's all faith, it's not just.
That's all faith, it's not just Jewish, right? And I wonder if this notion of sending your kids away to college is such a good thing.
Kids who go to college, as they get to be seniors, think of their friends as their community, as their family.
Right,
more
right.
than their family.
That's right.
And
But
in
even
today's society, if you are raising your child Jewish and he goes to another school, the other thing you may have to be concerned of is their safety, because wearing a yarmulke in school could be a problem.
that's a whole discussion I don't want to go down to today.
The professors may be teaching them things contrary to the values.
That's true whether they stay local
Yeah.
or whether they go
Yes.
outside. And that's a very rich topic. I don't want to go down that road right now.
But the other thing that's happening is people form, like we were getting to, their own communities
Right.
because people are so dispersed that
Right.
we still look for community.
Yeah.
So when people, meet each
True,
other in college.
but I
move
want
some of
to
their-
argue that grandparents are important, right?
I agree.
Very important.
I live in a community of grandparents, a 55 plus
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
And I would say 90% of the people in that development live there because they moved there to be close to where their grandparents
Right,
lived,
right.
as we did. I mean,
Right.
we didn't come from here, but we followed the
Right.
grandparents,
Which-
like little
which-
magnets.
Which is an interesting thing of people uprooting their lives to follow their grandkids.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly.
So, I had a great relationship, my grandparents died when I was young, but I had a great relationship with my grandmother because she lived across town, right? And my kids have not had as rich a life because we've never lived near the grandparents, except for, a year here or there. And, where I'm from, Canada, there's no tradition of going away to college in Canada, right? There's, like, if you live in Winnipeg, you can go to the University of Manitoba, or you can go to the University of Winnipeg. They're both in Winnipeg, right? If you live in Brandon, you go to the University of Brandon. You don't go away to university. And to the extent that there's housing on campus, that's for people who live out in the country who are incompetent to rent their own apartment. So we have to put them in housing. But it was like, we kind of looked down on people who lived in student housing because they were like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you get a part-time job and rent an apartment with a friend or something, right? But most of us lived at home and went and commuted to school. And there's much more intergenerational families going on in at least my part of the world that I'm from, right? If you're gonna go away, you'd go away for a graduate degree or something important, right? So coming here in America and seeing, how everyone is, how the elite, the educated elite are uprooting themselves from their communities. How often is it that someone comes home after being away at college?
Not that often at all, and it's almost like ingrained in our society that there's the benefit of mobility, that you're able to rise in the society, you're not stuck in your own little area, but on the other hand, it comes at a price.
Yeah, it comes at a price.
Back in the 70s, I looked at my high school, looked up some stuff from high school. I went to high school in the big city, Olney High, that completely changed over. And most of the people that went to Olney High, in my Masonic lodges and stuff like that, they moved out of the area. But Jenkintown, I went there, it's a small town. Almost everyone that went to high school in the class of 74 lived across the country. Not one person, very few live in the town anymore, very few.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's the way of the world now. That's the way, we're a very mobile society. We go where the jobs are, and not all who even lived in the town, they went to college. They get a job, and the job says, hey, and then they look, hey, there's an opening in Cincinnati. I'm moving there. Look at this, perfect for me.
And now the trend is away from college.
Yeah.
Because let's be quite honest, an arts degree doesn't really qualify you for anything, right?
Except a lot of
A what degree?
An arts degree.
Oh, no.
BA degree.
Right, does not, unless you're gonna become a professor of literature or a professor of history or a professor of something, an arts degree really does not advance you at all in the world. And people are beginning to see that, I just rewatched Good Will Hunting.
Oh my goodness.
And I hadn't seen it since it was in the theater. And I watched this film, and Will makes this point of view, it makes this comment about university college, right? Because he's having this debate with this guy who's, being erudite and that sort of thing. And he says, why would you spend thousands of dollars on an education that you can get for $1.50 in late fees and a library card? Right? Because all you're doing at university is, the benefit of university is the discussions that you get to have with your fellow students, right? But as far as the teaching goes, you can get any lecture online for free anywhere. You can read any book for not much money. You can get it for free at the library, right? A university education, unless it's like, science, we're actually doing stuff with equipment that you can't afford on your own. Or it's, something where, if you want to practice law, you need to go to law school. But again, it's
That's a certificate, though.
it's a certificate, but so what? I mean, it's none of the great scientists of years past, they were all autodidacts, they were self-taught, right?
Also self-motivated, and that's one of the things you get from a college education is you paid your money, or your dad did, or you're going to have to pay it in the future.
But I've seen college students, they're not motivated.
But somebody is providing for them a structure for how they're gonna study. You're gonna do it in this order, and you're gonna.
And to the extent that they don't do their homework, they're not motivated.
That's true.
Well, then the interesting point is then what's the, for some people, that type of education is appropriate. Some people are uncertain and maybe need to take some time initially before they decide if college is the right thing. Some people more of the certificate in trade, so there's different paths.
So
People can go on.
I went back to college in the last 5 years, and it was great until it became online. When it was online, it was just reading and lectures, but there was no interaction with students. And it's like, I'm not paying for this.
You know,
That's hard. I remember I took some professional certification courses. And initially, and this was in the early 2000s, so initially we were meeting in person, but I remember there was one where I was doing it online, and it was partly like you said, but what they tried to do is have a discussion. Like you could get on, again, early 2000s, so things were a little different, but I remember you could get on at a certain time, ask a question, interact with your peers.
Type questions back and forth,
You know,
someone write
kinda-
this, and
kinda
someone
like
write this,
that.
and someone write
It-
that. But it's like,
It's not the same thing.
it's not,
But it wasn't
it's
the same,
not
this one
the
didn't work as well
same.
either, because I think some technical glitches, because I
Right.
don't remember doing this a whole lot, because there was technical issues, there were technical
And the reason why these guys are going away to learn is that they're the only kid in their town is that they need to go find someone to challenge them. They need to find someone to challenge them. That was Goodwill Hunting's problem too. He had no one to challenge him
That's the thing.
who was still living.
That's the thing with Jewish education. You're supposed to find someone
A
to
study partner.
study with
Right.
you, who's essentially gonna challenge you.
Right,
but you
right.
just
Right. It's
makes sense there, you know.
There are a lot of online, I mean, it's amazing, you see the ads for colleges,
Yeah,
and so much
yeah.
you can get, your degree online, and you don't have to go anywhere, and,
But it's
for what
essentially,
it's worth.
yeah,
I-
it's essentially a certificate that you're getting that says you put in so much time and you paid so much money. And
Yeah.
it's-
My boss got a master's degree, my boss got a master's degree from like some university that he would normally never set foot in, because it was in the Midwest or someplace, and, it was all
Yeah.
online.
I got into not one argument, but I lost an argument here. It had to do with my office. And, it's Rabbi, you need to put your degrees up. It's like, why do I need to put my degrees up? No, you need to put your degrees on the wall, because you earned them and people need to see the piece of paper on the wall. It's like, so I caved, and so I've got this wall of degrees. But I haven't framed my doctorate yet, because it's honorary and, it really doesn't, it's like,
It's interesting you're saying it. In the 1970s, 60s and 70s, they started the financial aid program.
Yeah.
Where working class kids, even like myself, poor kids can go to school, get a loan, get a grade. Well, the universities did, but a flood of tech schools started springing up, teaching so-called technical degrees, and weren't training them properly to get jobs.
right.
Now I'm retired, I work private security. I can't tell you how many people went to ITT, Sanford Brown, whatever, PIC, they all have initials. And they studied like medical, but can't get a job in medical. They studied criminal justice, can't get a job. Degrees weren't worth nothing. First of all, the information they gave them a lot of the time was dated. They were at the computer learning center teaching them stuff about the computers that they don't use anymore.
Right, yeah.
And they were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to government. And then they said, oh, well, your people aren't paying back their loans because they're not getting jobs, so we're closing you down. So now they have a degree from a school that's closed.
Mhm.
And you can, the DOE in Pennsylvania, Department of Education, assigns transcripts. So if you're running a technical school, the Department of Education says, we're gonna give you money, I guess, but for community learning center, you're gonna be now giving transcripts. When people apply for their transcripts, you're gonna have access to that transcript so they can go to you. So you're going to an employer and it says, you went to computer learning center, didn't that school close?
Yeah.
I mean, and so it's a bad interview.
Yeah.
ITT, remember all the commercials, ITT?
Absolutely, it was everywhere.
They everywhere, and they went out of business. I didn't even tell the students until they showed up for class, and the doors are locked, and teachers were there. And so you're right, and people really dedicated their lives, because they didn't want to go for 4 years. Oh, I'm going to get a skill for 15 months. And when it doesn't always work either. The union trades, plumbers, electricians, carpenters. I worked in probation and parole. Guys would go to these schools, and I said, have you ever checked the unions and see what their apprenticeship programs are like? Carpenters are very good, electricians very hard to get into.
Mhm.
But one guy, he did get in, and he thanked me because he said, I almost wasted my money 1 year. Because they won't hire anybody. The union won't take you if you went to that school.
Yeah.
You went to your apprenticeship. So it depends. And like I went to, in 78, I graduated college. I couldn't get arrested. I couldn't get a job for anything. Ended up joining the army, coming out, finishing a degree in criminal justice. I got into probation and parole. My degree was worthless. It was political science.
Mhm.
And I liked it. I mean, I studied. I realized that you shouldn't go to college for fun.
No, unless you are independently wealthy, you should
That's right.
not go to college for fun.
And that's one of the, because that's all you got out of it, was hanging out and reading and discussing.
So, it's like, but what I like to do is I like to look at college courses and see what the reading list is, and I'll just buy the books. So we should probably stop the recording, because we're just, chatting at this point.
But it's interesting.
Coming here's like going to college.
Yeah, it is. And look, and
And nobody
there's
gives